from Southern Maryland's weather leader. This is a JB Weather Report.
And good morning, I'm forecaster John Bordash with you right now to give you the latest update here from the Weather Center on what it is we're tracking across the region as Tropical Storm Elsa does near the area. Before we get too underway, I think you all know the drill. If you can hear me fine, let me know in the comments, and I will withhold getting too ahead of ourselves while I wait for that confirmation. But we have a very busy day today on tap. I'm going to be here with you to give you the latest information throughout the morning, throughout the evening, and going to overnight tonight. And I think it will be very active as we have Tropical Storm Elsa moving in. We could see some embedded thunderstorms. Winds are going to begin to gust, and it's going to, we have a whole thing to go through. And I see Sophie's first comment. I can hear you. Thank you so much. And if everyone says that, I'm fine. So I do want to give just a quick overview of what I think we're tracking today. And I also want to say this will not be the only live stream today. So if you know someone that can't join right now, don't worry. We'll be back with you a little later. But this is the overall storm timeline. For those of you popping in just to see what we're talking about, a lot of you like this graphic. I like putting it together because I really think this answers the vast majority of the questions a lot of people I think are going to be asking. So I think we really begin to ramp things up after about 4 o'clock or so, 2, 3, 4 o'clock, anywhere after that point up until about 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. 2 to 4 inches of rain looks very possible. We'll get into that map in just 1 second. Winds could be gusting upwards of 35 to 45 miles an hour as we head throughout the evening tonight. And really the core of the wind and the rain, that's really going to be peaking after sunset tonight, really around midnight or so. Power outages are going to be possible, some scattered outages, but I think that's really just going to be confined to our coastal locations, especially those coastal locations in southern St. Mary's County. And we could see 1 or 2 weak spin-up tornadoes. We're going to get into everything in a little bit more in depth, so if you have a question about, well, who exactly is going to see the heaviest rain, don't worry. We'll get there in 1 second. This is just an overview for those of you popping in to get the latest information just quickly, because I know we're in the middle of the day and not everyone is at home able just to watch this. But now let's kind of get into the forecast a little bit. We have Calvert, St. Mary's, and Anne Arundel counties, as well as much of the eastern shore, upgraded to that tropical storm warning overnight. And we do not have that in place. That will go through today into tomorrow morning. All of those red shaded counties. So if you are in Prince Frederick, if you are in Leonardtown, if you are down in Colonial Beach, you are under a tropical storm warning. This is not in effect for Anne Arundel, PG, Charles, and King George County, and that really does give you the idea of where the worst impacts will be. They're really going to be right for our southern and easternmost communities, southern Calvert, southern St. Mary's. The further north and west you head, impacts are going to quickly taper off. And again, we'll get into that more as we move through the show here. But what does this tropical storm warning mean? Tropical storm force conditions are likely within 24 hours, and we define that as potential for winds of 39 miles per hour or greater. And we do want to prepare for some limited wind damage. I don't think we're going to have crazy wind damage. I think the worst of those conditions will be to our south and east, but that potential is there, especially for southern Calvert, southern St. Mary's County. That's really going to be the focal point, and that's going to be the theme here. And we will be talking about the potential for flooding as well. Here's a look at that rain forecast for you. I think we're talking 2 to 4 inches of rain. As you guessed it, southern Calvert, southern St. Mary's County there. Potential is there for locally a little bit more, but I think 2 to 4 inches is a safe bet. This is less than we saw last year from Hurricane Isaias. The further north and west you head, as you head right from about, let's call it like really close into Annapolis, up along the Bay Bridge down to Chesapeake Beach, Mechanicsville, talking probably about 1 to 2 inches. We're talking probably about half an inch to an inch being possible up along the 301 corridor, and less than half an inch up along I-95. For that reason, we do have a flash flood watch in effect, and it's very possible that we could overachieve these totals. So we will be watching for that potential for flooding across the region, and I think our flooding concerns, which we'll get into more in maybe a minute or so, it's really going to come mainly from the threat of rain, not so much from storm surge or coastal flooding at all. Taking a look at those wind gusts, how strong are the winds going to be? I think we're talking 45 to 60 mile an hour wind gusts for the lower eastern shore. In our region, I think we're talking 35 to 45 mile an hour gusts from about Prince Frederick to about Mechanicsville, point south and east. You're probably closer to 40, 45 miles an hour on the parts of our area that kind of stick out into the water. I'm thinking Cove Point, Drum Point, Solomons, down towards Pax River, Scotland, Piney Point, Tall Timbers shores, those would be the regions that I think could see the highest wind gusts. Sustained winds will probably only be about 10 to 20 miles an hour, so not too crazy, but those wind gusts could get up there, especially overnight tonight. And then for the rest of the region, really about 25 to 35 mile an hour gusts for you. We do have the threat of some isolated tornadoes, and that's always the threat we're talking about. That's always the threat we talk about with tropical systems. Tropical systems are big things, and they have a natural turning and twisting of the wind, so it's very easy to get a smaller area to twist and turn. The highest tornado threat, that elevated tornado threat, is to our south and east. It's typically to the east of the storm's track where you can get the highest tornado risk, and that's going to be the case down to the south and east. However, southern parts of our region do have a marginal tornado threat. 1 or 2 weeks spin-up tornadoes could be possible in that region. Coastal flooding, not really a concern. I took this from the our National Weather Service partners, the Solomons Island gauge, to give us an idea of what we're going to be looking at with flooding and with tides. And this, the blue line shows where we've been. The dotted purple line, that is the forecast going forward. We're not really talking about too much of a coastal flooding threat. We're well below flood stage as we head through the evening, but we will see increased water level rise, maybe an additional foot from what we would normally see, but nothing too crazy, not anything we haven't seen before across the region. And then I'll come back here to the storm timeline before we head on over to the futurecast and give you an idea of what that's looking like. But this is, I think this really does kind of tie everything I just told you together. Again, that 2 to 4 inches of rain, that threat's mainly going to be to the south and east. Winds are going to be the highest to the south and east with some scattered outages. Let me quickly show you a futurecast and how this times everything out. Let's switch this on over here. And this is sped well ahead of me. So let's start this off around lunchtime. Winds are there, shown by the arrows. The brighter those colors for the winds, the arrows rather, stronger the winds. And then we have radar on there as well. So this is right around lunchtime, not looking at too much but some clouds. It's really after about 2, 3, 4 o'clock here. That's when we start to see rain begin to train into the region a little bit. And we might be pushing off that threat for those potential for some embedded thunderstorms that might try to rotate a little bit, maybe until about the evening, a little after the evening rush, maybe closer towards dinner time, right around 6 o'clock or so. But this is when we start to see some of those initial bands from Elsa maybe trying to move through the region. To the north and west, if you look up towards Winchester and Frederick, up near the banner there, you see some storms up there. Those aren't related to Elsa. Those are just thunderstorms we would have regardless if we had a tropical system as a short wave of energy tries to move through the region. But you can see the winds beginning to pick on up, and as we push this after sunset, then the rain starts to pick up, and it's really after about 10, 11, 12 o'clock. That's when we start to see some of the heaviest rain and some of the gustiest winds. And you can see here, it's really centered in that region we keep talking about. South of Prince Frederick, really south of, along Mechanicsville and south. That's going to be the region where we see some of the heaviest rain. As we continue to push this on forward here, you can see by about midnight, we continue to see those bands move through as the core of Elsa is here. And if you follow the wind barbs, you can kind of see where that center of circulation is. I don't have it drawn on here, but it's right around Lexington Park. That's where that track takes it over. Heading us over towards 1 and 2 o'clock, it then begins to move over towards the eastern shore. Rain is winding down. Winds are winding down. This is continuing to push to the north and east. By about 4, 5, 6 o'clock, when you're waking up, let's push you back here. That was as we push you on forward here. This, thank you, computer, for not really working the way I want you to. But by about 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, I don't think we're talking about too high of a rain threat anymore. That's now pushed off to the north and east. If you have any interest over towards southern New England, New York City, on over towards Boston, they're going to be dealing with these impacts much longer, or pushed a little bit further ahead. So we're talking about those impacts really beginning for them around sunrise tomorrow morning while we're wrapping things up down here. If I take you over to radar right now, here is how Elsa is looking. I have the wind barbs on there, I have satellite, I have radar, and any warnings are on there right now. And I want to switch this around quickly, so this is going to look a tad crazy. My apologies. There we go. This is how we're looking at things. You can see Elsa here spinning. You can see we have gusty winds coming on shore. Winds inland, not too bad. The highest winds are really right up along the coastal beaches down here in parts of North Carolina, South Carolina. I know we have a couple, if you have anyone traveling on over towards, let's say, the Outer Banks or down towards Myrtle Beach, some of those summertime getaways, this isn't too crazy. And if you are over, let's say, in Ocean City, Maryland, I answered a question about this earlier today. I don't think this is necessarily a situation where if you just got out there for a beach trip or you're not coming home until, let's say, Sunday, I don't think you need to wrap things up early. I mean, you're going to see some gnarly weather out there. Some of the worst weather will probably be out there. But I don't think this is anything in which you would need to cancel any trips home or, any of that type of stuff. This is going to be, and it's going to be out pretty quick. It's moving at a pretty quick forward speed. So that isn't a concern I have. As we kind of come in here locally, we're not looking at much across our region. Again, we have those clouds, rain showers back to the west, and I think temperatures today are going to top out around 80, and then we see those winds try to gust later on into the evening. If I take you on over towards Futurecast, show you what the Futurecast is showing in terms of winds here for you. Let me get that loaded up here. I have to click a whole bunch of buttons, and I think, as you all would know at this point, typically when I go to launch Futurecast the first time, it doesn't want to work. Why? I couldn't tell you. But that just always seems to be the case here. So let's see. Let's get Futurecast loaded up, and I don't think it's going to want to work for me. Oh, yes it will. Awesome. So as we, let's push this over towards about 9 o'clock this evening, or this is a little bit off here, so I gotta play catch up because what I see on my screen is not what is going on. But so this is right around 11, 12 o'clock this evening. Now we're taking a look. This is not looking at rain right now. We're not. So this legend up here, not applicable. We're talking about the potential for wind gusts. You can see this here with my cursor as it probes the different areas. So we're talking the potential for 30 to 40 mile an hour wind gusts, really going to be focused south of Prince Frederick, south of Mechanicsville. But you can see the center of Elsa right down here, right around it. I mean, wind gusts up to 40 to 50 miles an hour. You can see that being the case. And I really do think it's going to be our coastal waters here that see some of the highest wind gusts. And these are wind gusts. These are not sustained winds. Sustained winds nowhere near as high. By about midnight, the storm has now begun to move through the region. We're not talking about crazy high winds. I mean, wind gusts between 35 to 45 miles an hour look likely, but the worst weather, you can see these bright colors over here, winds are gusting upwards of 50 to 60 miles an hour for our Atlantic beaches. So any interest over towards Ocean City or Chickatique or down there along the lower eastern shore, you're going to want to be aware that we're talking about some gusty winds overnight tonight, but that's really about it, I think, for our for that. If I take you back over here, I'll get to some of your questions now that we've kind of run through the main show here, kind of get some of those answered. I know we probably have a lot of questions about what am I going to see in my specific neighborhood. If you head over to jbweather.net, all my maps and everything is loaded up over there, and that will answer 98% of your questions along with this very helpful storm timeline graphic. So let's see. And Nancy, I appreciate the comment. Thank you. And haircut is actually a couple of weeks old at this point. But yes, I'm feeling much better than I was a couple of weeks ago. And Aaron, goldfish are stocked. They're not out here just yet because we don't have any rain falling in Southern Maryland. Ryan continues to withhold those from me. Thanks, sir. I just want to hear you pronounce the name of our last tropical storm. Isaias. I know. It was a very weird storm, and I want to say last time we had a tropical system move through, I did the live coverage for 8 hours, right? That started at like 2 a.m. So me at 2 a.m. trying to pronounce Isaias was not fun. Elsa is a lot easier. Let's see. Hey, what's up, John? Thanks for keeping us updated. Work till 8, so what will be happening in Lesbia around then? Corey, if I take you back over your Futurecast, let me let this kind of play out, and you can kind of see how as rain begins to move in this evening. Right around 8 o'clock, our Chesapeake Bounty Futurecast shows that's when we start to see some of the heavier, more steady rains, especially down towards Lesbia, down towards Lexington Park, that region. You start to see the more consistent rain move in. James, there we go. So basically, like half our beach is screwed. It depends on what you mean by screwed, James. If you're saying that in terms of you're going to see horrible weather, I don't think that's going to necessarily be the case. If you're talking screw like you're not going to see a lot. I don't think that's the case either. You'll see some rain, but it won't be too bad. Did you... Oh, wait, what is that? Eric, you know I do not... Pasai, I think is the way you pronounce that. Let me know if I'm wrong, because that's the way I've been saying it for years. I'm not from Charles County, so I wouldn't know. I don't think I've actually ever been to Pasai. I should probably make a trip out there at some point. But let me know if I'm saying that right. Pasai, Maryland, in Charles County. Scotland's still going to get 4 inches of rain and wind. Glenn, you're doing that thing people do in the wintertime, which I'm not a fan of. Do not latch on to the higher end of these totals. 2 to 4 inches of rain is possible, yes. Maybe locally higher totals, but I don't think we're seeing widespread 4 inches amount of rain. And I'll show you we'll go back to Futurecast here in a second. Let me get to these questions, and I'll show you how Futurecast paints out these numbers, because they look a little different than my map. Traveling from the hospital to DC before 2 p.m. should be good. Yeah, Linda, you should be fine. There might be some scattered rain showers, but by and large, you should be fine. Can I run through the Futurecast images again? Yes, Stephen, definitely. And what I will do, I'm going to continue to read questions. This will loop through, and I'll just let this loop through. And you can see the timestamp up there. This starts at lunchtime today. That's the Yakima County check. There you go, Brian, down there on the lower eastern shore. You're going to see some pretty gnarly weather down there as well. Heavy rain, really gusty winds down that way, potentially gusting up to 50 or 60 miles an hour. Mandy says she's joining me. What about Charles County? So there was Futurecast running through for you. I'm going to hop back over here. Let me hop back to the storm timeline. Mandy, that should answer a lot of your questions. Actually, let me go through the maps to show you. Charles County really kind of depends where you are. If you are east of 301, east of Waldorf, east of Left Lane, probably about an inch or two of rain. West of 301, about a half inch to an inch of rain. In terms of wind, you're probably looking at about 25 to 35 mile an hour gusts. See, Eric, Pasai is, I feel like I'm still saying that so Newburgh is looking about half an inch to an inch of rain. Yes, Bill. So down there, the base of 301 down there at the Charles County Peninsula, one of the many, probably looking about an inch and half an inch, about an inch of rain. Tell us about Scotland, Maryland on the high tide. Jocelyn wants to know. I don't have that graph pulled up, but this, I did take a look at it though, and I didn't include it for this reason that it looks very similar to the Patuxent River at Solomon's Island hydrograph here. Flood state starts at 3 feet. Both locations look to only max out at maybe 2.5-ish feet in terms of total tide height. We saw a higher tide. What was that? Sunday night into Monday, actually. So we're not going to be nearing flood stage by any stretch of the imagination. So it should be good. Heavy rain and wind always. Yeah, so James, I think you will probably see some periods of heavy rain and some gusty winds down there in Calvert Beach and St. Leonard. So yeah, I do think that's probably possible. Mandy, let's see, Pasai. So was I saying it right, saying Pasai, or do I need to put a Z instead of an S? Pasai. Because that really does not sound right. When will the rain start in Leonardtown? Olivia wants to. Let me run you back here to Futurecast. I'll let this loop through and let you see. Leonardtown's right there near Lexington Park. Down south, it's Pasai. We'll see. What about Region Scotland? So, Becky, you can actually see here on the Futurecast, and this will loop through. You'll see some of the worst weather, actually. I think in southern Maryland, you'll see some of the worst down there. I don't think you will see the worst of the storm, though. I think down towards Scotland and Ridge, you're probably talking about 2 to 4 inches generally of rain, winds gusting maybe up to 45 miles per hour. The worst of it probably happens overnight tonight. And if I can give this a pause, you can kind of see down there at the tip of St. Mary's, that's where the center of this storm is probably going to move over. So you will see some gnarly weather, but it should be all clear by about 2, 3, 4 o'clock. Dunkirk area, you can see yourself on the map there. You're probably not talking about as much rain as you are down towards Region Scotland. But I think you're still talking about probably half an inch to an inch of rain being possible. I got to add in that ticker back. I just don't know what I would fill it with. I can have all the town names down there. Let's see. Let's see, not me terrified of flying. So if you're flying out of Dulles, Lauren, this afternoon you're looking. I mean, there's going to be some scattered storms around. So Dulles is to the northwest of D.C. there in Loudoun County. This afternoon you should be fine. Some scattered rain showers and storms well west, but Dulles should be fine by and large until about sunset. Until about dinner time. So if you're flying out anytime before about 5 or 6, you should be fine. And then maybe you might have some delays because you have some scattered storms that try to move through. So you say it. I need to write this down. So it's pronounced P-I-Z. Let me scroll back up. I know I'm like fixating on this, but I'm very interested. So I use this. I make the S into a Z. Pizza. Maybe I'll just refrain from referencing that part of Charles County. Let's see. How will rainfall compare to the heavy rain on Wednesday, June 9th, since that brought a lot of rain to the area? Ivana, you are testing my memory here. If I remember correctly, I believe June 9th was part of that string in which we saw continuous flash flood warnings. I'm not too sure. June was I had surgery and then I moved. So and my memory just normally is a crapshoot. But I think just generally speaking, there could be instances of flooding and flash flooding in our region. I think that's mainly going to be confined to the south though. But yeah, I don't think we're going to see, so up to 12 inches. That was down towards like the Newburgh area and King George County on over towards the northern neck. I don't think we'll see that much rain. Everyone's helping me. More of a G set. Pajah? This is not good. See, I thought, it's funny when I hear people try to pronounce Lesby. You all know I grew up in Lesby. And a lot of people will say, like, Looseby or, like, something weird. I'm like, no, it's Lesby. And I, like, replace the S with a Z, and then they get it right. I just can't make Pasai. I need someone to send me a video of them saying this town name. Dares Beach on over towards Prince Frederick. You're probably looking about an inch or so of rain. Winds gusting maybe up that way up to about 30-35 miles an hour. And Patricia, hello. Wondering about Brandywine. You actually should be good from this system. You'll see some rain and some wind, but you're not in the tropical storm warning. Over towards Brandywine, you might see between half an inch and an inch of rain. And that wind threat you're probably closer down to about 25 mile an hour gust. Outdoor party Saturday night. So, yeah, Jody, you should be all good to go. Yeah, down in California, you should be all good Saturday evening. Jeffrey. SBC shows a tornado. Yeah, so Mike, I do have a graphic for that, and it was actually the next one here. That tornado threat is going to be the highest to the south and east of us, so down towards the lower Delmarva. And I'm going to post this up on Facebook, Twitter, the website to share that. But that's where the highest tornado threat's going to be. We have a marginal tornado threat for parts of our region, southern Calvert, southern St. Mary's County. But the threat's going to be the highest for our south and east. But again, we're not ruling out the threat of a tornado. I'm saying it too fancy. Man, I don't know what that... I have an idea what that means. I just don't know how else I would pronounce it. Pizza. Like, that does not sound right. I'm thinking, like, the word pizza. Is it close to pizza? And thank you, Eric. I appreciate it. Diane wants to know about Huntingtown. Huntingtown, the same thing probably as the Prince Frederick forecast there for you. Probably looking around an inch of rain being possible. I'll take you back to Futurecast to show you that. I got to get the ticker back up. I got to get that back up. Now let this run through. You can kind of pick out where Huntingtown is on the map. Yeah, Chris, the same thing for Chaptico. If you look at the map here, probably looking at about an inch or so of rain. Some winds maybe up to 35 mile an hour for gusts. Lauren, of course. Pisgah. See, this does not work well for me. Trying to get the phonetics of this town name. It is taking a group effort. Pisgah. I'm gonna leave it alone. Mandy says she's gonna message me. I'll take that as for what it's worth. Let's move on. Susie, will school bus drivers in St. Mary's County be okay for today and tomorrow? Then, so for today, you should. If we take it back here, So I would imagine you're probably going to be doing bus runs around 2, 3, 4 o'clock. There'll be some rain, nothing too crazy. And then tomorrow morning you should be fine. You're only going to have issues driving buses. For example, Susie, if you are driving them after like 5 or 6 o'clock. I think otherwise, I mean, you might see like a gusty shower, but nothing too crazy. Prince Richard area, what time we always flood. And Neva wants to know about what was that? Lexington Park. So, actually, wait, because I said I was going to show something that I didn't. Let me pop you on over to Futurecast quick, because I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but we still have some people who can tolerate my mispronunciations. What I want to do, actually, is show you how the model depicts rainfall. So this isn't necessarily my forecast, but this is how our Chesapeake Sunny Futurecast model shows rain being shows rain falling. So we're going to see a tight gradient between rain, and I want to make sure I'm to the end of it. So you can see up north, you're not looking at much. I mean, my forecast might even be a little bit overdone for northwestern areas, because there's going to be a very tight gradient between who sees a lot of rain. I mean, DC, barely anything. Lexington Park, 2 inches. Down here towards west, 2 to 4. So that gradient's going to be tight, and it really won't be until you head south of Prince Frederick, south of Chaptico and Mechanicsville, where you start to see some of those higher rain totals. Solomon's close to 2 inches. Valley Lee, 2.5 inches. Scotland, 2 inches. Loveville, maybe up near an inch. Prince Frederick, though, our model shows only about maybe 1/3 of an inch. Colonial Beach, talking maybe near an inch. Montrose getting near 4 or 5. Salisbury about 2.5. So this is kind of how our model depicts this. And if I can show you a couple of our other models, I want to see if our, let's see, yeah, that one did not initialize well. I guess my only other option is to use our global model, which I don't like doing. Tomorrow's the 9th, and let's just put that towards 8 a.m. tomorrow. I mean, this model takes the track maybe even a little further to the east and really kind of pegs the heaviest rain out here towards Salisbury and Lexington Park, maybe even on the edge. So we're kind of in a wait-and-see mode right now to kind of see how all of this kind of plays together. Our high-res model, though, that I trust the most, it's the HRRR, does it shows that, quick cutoff in rain totals there for you. You see, we're looking at a lot of rain versus not much rain at all. So Prince Frederick, I don't think you need to worry about flooding for the most part from this. Mandy, thank you for the voice message. Pisgah? Okay, I need to leave this alone because I'm fixating too much on it. The G is not silent. Pisgah. Okay, this is too much. Getting closer. No, It's fine. It's okay. We're going to leave this alone. I'm going to skip over the coming comments about this. And for those of you that are watching this as a Periscope or as a YouTube recording, I'm sure you're not seeing these comments. These are all over on the Facebook page. So I'm going to skip over these comments now. I'll come back to this later on. Let's see. I think he was worried about trees down or flooding on back roads. Yeah, Susan, I mean, do be safe. Tomorrow morning you'll probably see some residual flooding that's still ongoing, but I think the rain should be wrapped up by about 2, 3, 4 o'clock. Sandy wants to know about Hollywood, probably looking about 2 to 3 inches of rain there. And it really will depend on where the heaviest bands of rain set up with this. So my son has his driver's test at 4:30 today at Loveville. Aaron, I'll show you a Futurecast over here because this works out a little bit better for us. And we'll let this run through. 12, 1, 2, 3. So right around 4 o'clock, that's when you're trying to get the rain in here. 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, that's when we start to see some heavier rain. So if you want to make sure you know that try and rain, you should be good. And this isn't going to be at this point in the day, 4, 5, 6 o'clock. This won't be rain that you've never seen before. I mean, this will look like a typical rain, maybe a little bit of gusty wind, but nothing too Ooh, nothing too crazy. It's not until after sunset that we get into the crazy stuff. I'm a Port Republic base that I'm worried about. Christina, we're not looking at too much of a water rise threat at all. So this is the hydrograph from Solomon's Island. This is what most of our different hydrographs from up and down the bay are showing, so I just picked one. You're not going to see crazy high water level rise with this. The difference between this and, let's say, Hurricane Isaias from last year, that storm, if I can... I want to do... Okay, I will show you why there is such a stark difference between what we normally see with tropical systems that are impacting us as they come up the coast versus what we normally see. Let me get my pen tool up. This is what I used all winter that got us through all those storms. So let me just get that loaded up, and then I'll switch you on over here. If it wants to load, there it is, okay. Okay, I don't need an ad. Let's see if I can come over. There we go. So, Hurricane Isaias last year got on this way and came up like this. It was actually a little bit further west, but the storm itself... There we go. The storm itself was moving just up along the water. And typically when we have tropical systems we're dealing with, that is the path they're taking. This one, not so much. Elsa made landfall down in Florida and is coming this way. So they're both heading to the north and east. Elsa, though, is spending a lot more time over land. So that is allowing, for a weaker storm. The biggest wind concerns is really just the wind it's able to whip up off the bay. There isn't a lot of natural wind with this. A lot of that kind of got displaced, for lack of a better term, once it made landfall. So I don't think we're really looking at that as a threat for us. And that's good. Well, the wind will be a little bit of a threat, but the coastal flooding won't really be that big of a threat. Because when we get those storms that come up, when they come up like this, they're still pretty strong, and they're whipping everything kind of like that, right? So this is how we typically, when we have tropical systems, how that looks. Tropical storm Elsa is coming up like this. So what that means is that while we get some wind with it, we're not talking about a lot of wind because it's coming from over land. So I know that's a little bit of a long explanation, but they're just coming, this storm is coming in a far different angle than we typically see with these storms. Normally when we get storms that come in the direction that Elsa is coming in, typically it's when we get those storms that landfall down here along the Gulf Coast and our remnants track up like this. This is kind of this, and with those, we normally are talking about more of a rain and tornado threat. This storm, because it came on land down here and is tracking a little bit more like that, do have to worry about some wind, but I don't think that's going to be the biggest threat here. So I hope that kind of answered that a little bit. And I know that was a long way to get there. I just heard what time for California do you know? Generally declare a state of emergency in advance of tropical storm Elsa. I don't know if that's who was that? Lisa, I don't know if they actually have declared a state of emergency yet. I'm not too sure. We've been live here since about 10, so I'm not too in tune just yet. If they have, if they haven't, I don't know if they will. This definitely won't be anything like what we saw last year. So that is good news. And thank you, Christine. I'm glad you appreciated that, my explanation. Sometimes I get lost in my own words, clearly, as we went through the town name debacle. But yeah, that's pretty much everything I have for you. And for those of you just now tuning in, I will show you our storm timeline graphic. This, I think, really kind of answers a lot of those questions, gives you a good idea of what we're talking about. Oh, Mindy wants to know about Chesapeake Beach. Let me move. I'll come back to this one in a second. So Chesapeake Beach is under that tropical storm warning. You might see probably only about an inch or so of rain. And the highest winds are going to be to your south and east. Really kind of focus like southern Calvert, southern St. Mary's. I think on over towards Chesapeake Beach, you should be spared from the heaviest rain and from the heaviest wind. Okay, so St. Mary's County is declared. Okay, so a state of emergency, and I think that kind of carries more weight when we say it than what it actually means. So that just means that we'll have access to different types of resources and funding. Nothing actually like really changes when that happens, but I'm at least moving day to day. But that's kind of what we're talking about. So that's it. I'm sure we'll probably be live back here. I'm probably around 2-3 o'clock this afternoon or evening. We're going to get the newest advisory here on Elsa coming out at around 11. I'm not expecting to have groundbreaking changes at this point. We're just kind of in a wait-and-see mode. So the game plan I have going forward is we'll do another one of these lives around 2 or 3 o'clock, and probably another one after that around 6 or so. And then probably starting around 9 o'clock tonight, we'll do another one of those live continuing coverage type lives that are going to be like 6, 7, or 8 hours long. That shows radar where I'm interjecting at points to give you updates. That seemed to work well last time with our tropical system, and I'm sure that'll work well here. So we'll see kind of how that rolls out. We'll play it all by ear. So. But stay tuned. My forecast is always up on jbweather.net, on the Facebook page, on Twitter. You have access to all of this. So, let's see. Carol wants to know about Annapolis. Those answers are all up over there. For those of you wondering about, let's say, how like Mechanicsville is going to look, or Clinton or something. I'll quickly touch on the Annapolis. You're not looking at too much bad weather. You will probably see some rain up to an inch, and maybe some wind gusts up to maybe 25 miles an hour. So nothing too crazy, and I'm not worried about coastal flooding up that way by any stretch of the imagination. But that just about does it for me. Thank you for joining me here. I'm sure we'll be talking a lot more throughout the rest of today. Have a nice and safe one, and keep it tuned right here to JB Weather.
Check the forecast anytime online at jbweather.net.